Okay, so for those who don't know you, would you guys like to do a short introduction for us?
Go off.
Sure.
Let's do it.
My name's Elena, and this is Travis, and we're in a band called Soft and Dumb. We're a two-piece from Chicago who makes indie rock music.
Yeah.
Right? Is that good?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
And I'd like to hear a little bit more about your story. So take us back to the beginning. Were both of you always interested in music, or was it something you discovered that you loved?
I think I was always interested in music. I used to make music in when I was like a middle schooler. I was like in middle school band, but that was just more of a fun music thing I did. But in my private alone time, I would write songs on the guitar, and I taught myself guitar. And my dad was a bassist, so growing up, I feel like there was always music equipment around me that I just sort of saw as a normal thing to have music and be surrounded by music in my home environment. And yeah, I feel like I was always really into music.
Yeah, I mean, I've always just been I wouldn't have said I was really into music. I was never a fan of celebrities or bands or anything like that. I didn't have a favorite band, or I think that to a bad extent. As a kid, I wasn't into bands or into much music or whatever. But I did, for whatever reason, have the inclination to play music. And I didn't really have instruments in my house as much, but when I would go to my friends, I would just play on their pianos or whatever was sitting around at their house. So I was always really interested in music more from the mechanical perspective, of just, this is so cool that this thing can make a sound. And I didn't really get into bands until when we met in Urbana, where we met in college, where there's kind of a house show scene and all that. So yeah.
Well, that's a great transition for me, because I was just about to ask, how did you guys meet, and how did you guys end up blending your sounds into what it is now, and how did you become Soft and Dumb?
We met in college. He was friends with my sister, and we just sort of ran in the same circles because of that. And we would see each other at house shows, and we just got to talking a couple of times. And I don't know if this is clear, but we're dating. We're a couple. So we initially started dating first. And I guess there were rumors around that I was a really good guitarist, but I didn't play in front of anyone because I was so good, which is not true. I was just too embarrassed and shy to play in front of anyone. But that was very funny that was the rumor, and that was the interpretation of me being scared.
That's a little overly dramatic. I think the rumor was that you were good at playing guitar, which I think is a truth. I don't think it was much of
I thought it was Dirk was
whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe he thought you could
finger
tap, and that was some crazy thing or whatever. But the fact of the matter is you are really good at guitar. And yeah, it was we met, we were dating for I think 6 months. And there kind of been a whisper of maybe whatever, Lainey wouldn't play guitar for anyone, even me, in private, just in her bedroom, she wouldn't even play guitar for me. So it was after a lot of convincing of you should play guitar, come on, you sound really good. And then seeing how good she was, oh my God, you're way better at guitar than I am. That's cool. Yeah, it was just something of I thought it would be cool. We thought it would be cool to try to write music together. We definitely, I do not think we ever foresaw it becoming into what it is today. We just announced our first tour yesterday, and that just feels unreal. Even a few weeks ago, it felt unreal to say that. But yeah, as far as how we met, we just kind of decided after a few months of dating that we would try it.
Yeah.
And our first show wasn't awesome because it was a week before the pandemic started. So that was kind of the start of the band.
Was a little fun starting off point.
Well, congratulations to you both on the tour. You've come a long way since the beginning of the pandemic, and I'm so glad that you ended up finding your confidence to be able to perform.
Yeah, I'm very glad too. It's been kind of a crazy journey because I never thought I would ever perform music in front of people in a way that wasn't middle school band. So that's been really cool to see.
Mm-hmm. Well, I saw that you guys do like most of your recording, mixing, booking, and lots more for your band. What does being independent mean for you guys, and why do you find it important?
Being independent, it is, I mean, it's sort of a means of control, and like, because we care so much about this project, and like, I just want to make sure that it's the best it can be. And I think we come from like a house show DIY scene where like the DIY ethos or whatever is really strong. And yeah, it was just like, also we're a small band. It didn't feel possible for us to get other people involved in any way.
Yeah. Yeah, the independent, what is it, you said, what does it mean to be independent? I mean, yeah, it's awesome because the control is good, but at the same time it's also almost like a responsibility. And especially now that like doing things like tour, and we have a huge album release show tomorrow, and all the stuff that we've been planning and booking and all that, it's like it almost does feel like there's this weight of like, how much is it just a passion project versus how much is it now there's an expectation, you know, that people have. And I think that we are really focused on making this project reflect who we truly are as people to the best of our ability. And I think that that's good because people understand that we're just, you know, still humans. But yeah, it feels like, at least for me, like Lainey hit it on the head, like of coming out of the Urbana DIY scene, it's like bands there are just people that get together and they're like, let's be a band. Whereas in Chicago, a lot of the time, at least bands that make it or that are around are always like, this is my label, this is whatever, you know, it's a machine, it's a business. And like some of what we do is very businessy still. But we try to like really be able to focus on just it being a project, and like, let's just have it be a project and not think of it more than that.
Yeah, I was definitely able to feel that it was very personal. That's why I wanted to reach out and interview, because I very much felt that, and I love stuff like that. I love music like that. You mentioned your album, which is very exciting. Can you describe what it feels like knowing people love all of your music, or hopefully that they love all their music? I know I do. And what it feels like knowing that people are appreciating something that you worked really hard on.
It's very, I feel very shocked because again, I come from a place where I'm like, no one would, I just have this like insecurity where like no one's gonna want to hear what I have to say or care what I'm talking about, especially musically. And to get such positive recognition for that is very like affirming for me personally. But also at the same time, I see like the crazy amount of work that we put into this project. So I'm just like, oh, it kind of makes sense. I'm just like, wow, I'm putting in work and I'm seeing something grow from it.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing. Like even, and I know you're asking about the music specifically, and I'll come back to that, but even something as monumental as announcing a tour, like we've gotten so wrapped up in our own heads that didn't seem like a big deal in any way to us, like let alone something that we completely put together on our own. It's not like a label was like, oh, you should tour with this big band or whatever. It's just like we just tried to reach out to as many friends as we could in Detroit and Nashville and random cities. And like at a certain point, it is this thing of like, it's not really that impressive to me or whatever anymore, because it's like we have been putting so much work into it that it's like, yeah, we better get output from it, like, because we really are working on this like night and day. You know, yeah, Lainey and I both work jobs, and then on top of that it's just constant of like, oh, we need to meet this deadline, we need to do this, we need to do this interview, whatever. And we're really happy you asked us to do this interview, but it's just busy. And so it feels good to have music out, to have that sort of like validation, I think. And yeah, people being able to listen to it. I mean, physical releases are really important to us too, like cassettes and CDs and vinyl, which we got pressed ourselves. And like, I think that it's cool to just have that in people's hands and see how interested people are in supporting it.
I think that's very cool. The physical stuff, especially. I think that's cool that you guys are doing all that, and especially with the tour. So next question. This interview was made possible by SongMe. And for viewers who don't know, it's an app where audience members can find live music nearby or performances online and send song requests to musicians. How would you how would you use that app for your performances, and what do you think is so important about connecting with your community?
In terms of community, I feel like we come from a space where it's just like community is everything. Like in the DIY scene, like this person brings the PAs, this person is running sound, you have these and these bands coming together, it's this person's house and this person running door. I feel like community is like essential to music and culture and just like a lot of things in the world. But in terms of like connecting with like our like fans and community, I think it's like incredibly important to, I guess. It's so weird to think about the idea of having fans, I guess. I don't
Or
know.
like an audience?
Yeah, like an audience. I guess yeah, I don't know. What
Yeah,
would you say?
I mean, community is the whole thing, right? If there was
Yeah.
no community, no one would come to the show, and then we wouldn't really be doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
And also like we're part of the community, we go to other people's shows, whatever. But I think the SongMe thing is actually kind of interesting because like looked into it briefly what it is. I don't know if you know, Lainey, but it's like kind of like you can make requests and stuff to what an artist want to play. It kind of made me think of that, like it's like this double-edged thing where we're always wanting more audience interaction. So at the end of the day, I love when someone just shouts out like, play this, play that song or whatever. And that's effectively what this app is trying to do. Like if there was a bigger show where it's a little harder to shout, you're kind of doing that and you're able to interact. But at the same time, I feel like there's this weird feeling also of like, it reminds me of the Mitski thing and Mitski talking about people always recording, shows and everything and constantly making everything online. Like if you're talking about like commodifying performers and all that, like does the app also, I don't know, I think it raises some interesting like thoughts for me, just as like I think there's benefits to something like that, but it also makes me definitely like alarmed at like how much are we looking at it, like especially I don't know how the app works exactly, but even like paying money for songs and stuff, I don't know. If somebody said $500 for Honeydew, would you do it?
I'd do Honeydew for free.
See, that's okay.
I think it's like a sort of respectful way to like request songs. I know some people are like feel uncomfortable at like the play this song or play this song when they have like a really planned performance, and like Mitski, like you said in an example, is like she has a really choreographed routine because she has like dances to each and every one of her songs. So it's like probably way more difficult to be like, play this song, Mitski.
And a big important thing for, again, with community, right, is like understanding that artists are people, the artists are part of the community. And it seems like with the app that the money goes to the performers. I don't know how it works with the percentage or whatever, but that is a number one thing for us too, coming from a DIY thing, is like artists have to get paid. And you run in circles sometimes where you start to see like, when everybody else is involved and so many people get a piece of the pie, the artists don't really get paid. So even the idea of something like this where you're effectively kind of tipping, an artist directly, I think that's always a positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a big part of it is like helping these independent artists grow too. It's not just like with the song requests and stuff, they will like offer resources and make sure that these artists can grow in the way that they should. And also I am a big Mitski fan, so I remember that happening on Twitter with her saying that everyone shouldn't be recording. And I think it's a big discussion about commodifying artists and like seeing them solely as their art and not as people. I think that's definitely like a big issue that people have. You mentioned a song, Honeydew, and I love your music. I want to know what your favorite song to perform is live.
Ooh, favorite song to perform live. I mean, Honeydew is a favorite just because, I don't know, it's like, I think it's the first song we ever wrote. So we're just very comfortable playing it. And it's just like sort of a song that gets people like moving and dancing. And I feel like the songs that the audience like reacts to the most, I'm just like, yes, this is my favorite to perform. Because it's just it's like you feel that connection between the audience like better. So yeah, Honeydew is really fun to perform for me.
That's cool. I guess I can't say the name of the song directly because we want it to be a surprise for the release show tomorrow, but we're doing like some new stuff And kind of with different, normally like Lainey always plays guitar, I always play drums, and that's the whole thing. We both sing, but now we're kind of experimenting with some other instruments. So I think some of the songs that we're doing that for currently are kind of my favorite because it's just so new and fresh. And it's, as someone who's normally behind a drum kit, it's very fun to be standing up on stage. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, he was shocked at how high the mic stand had to be.
Or
He's
yeah, I'm
always
just like,
sitting
wow,
down
like
playing drums.
I'm so used to, you know, being
He's like, that's how tall it's
right.
That's so interesting to see the difference. I think that's great that you're trying different things too. I think it's really important to always have that kind of variety and keep things fresh and new.
I think it's opening up tons of possibilities too. And with this tour, you know, that we're going on, like I'm even thinking now it could be cool to, before, you know, because especially on tour, it's awesome to just be a two-piece and just have drums and guitar. It's so simple. When people hear that, they're like, what? It's just the two of you? And it's like, sure, like let us borrow the drums and there's a guitar amp and we can go. It's done. But now I'm like tempted, now that we put the work into kind of doing this at the release show, it's like, maybe we do bring the drum machine. Maybe we do, you know, I don't know, just ideas.
I want to know if you have any advice for like newer artists, like what do you think you would have wanted to hear when you were up and coming?
Play as many shows as you can. Help other people throw shows, attend shows, be involved in your local scene. I feel like that's the best way, I don't know, to get your foot in the door and also get involved in a really like important, hopefully good community, depending on where you are. Don't support assholes.
Good
Yeah.
one.
Totally. I mean, I think that like Lainey's hit it on the head, like play as many shows as you can. We literally played, and we're lucky because our band is like a very vibrant DIY scene. I think we played like 40 shows in under a year, which is just like, that's not as part of a tour. That's not as anything. That's just every single individual show was like, hey, come to my house and play a show. Hey. So it's like almost every weekend we were doing that. And it's just unreal. But it's almost, I guess the advice would be like, I think a lot of times people look at music and all that is like, you need like a big break or whatever. And certainly we have gotten people who it feels like they throw us a bone, and now we got booked on some big show, and that's awesome. But it's like the main focus, I think, is like, if you really think about just being involved, going to other people's shows, documenting other shows, everyone always needs photographers, zines, people to do interviews, people to write about stuff, right? If you can just become involved and become friends with people who are also involved, I really think it should be a relatively natural process, as long as you aren't an asshole, like Lainey mentioned, right? Like I think that, yeah, I would say just don't be looking for like one huge thing that's going to be the thing that makes you not up and coming anymore, which I think also, to clarify, we are up and coming. But yeah, it's like, I don't know, just
Clarify,
let it be as natural as possible.
So you gotta be kind, be persistent, and be involved.
Yeah.
That's a good summary.
And yeah, I mean, if it's something you're genuinely passionate about, like so many people we meet, especially now being in Chicago, it's awesome meeting a bunch of fresh faces of people, and it's like unreal how much people are devoted to their craft, the local scene, all that, and it's really cool.
I love to see it.
We love to see it. So one last question. I want to ask, what does the future have in store for both of you, and what can fans or audience expect next?
We just announced a tour, a Midwest tour, and it's our first ever tour, and we're super excited about it.
Yeah, so if you're in Louisville or Nashville, Detroit, or anything like that randomly, it will be coming to you, I guess, which is cool.
Our album is coming out Friday. Tomorrow. What are things that are coming? What are other things?
I think room for a little experimentation. Like,
very true.
This album is self-titled for a reason. It's because it's kind of the summation of, like we said, 40 house shows in 50 weeks or whatever. Like, it's kind of a summary of that. It encapsulates like what we have been up to this point. It feels like a nice, I don't want to say that fully, but it kind of feels like a nice, like, knot, tying a knot at the end of something. Like, it feels like a bookend in a way.
A chapter, one might say.
Yeah, we kind of,
Mhm.
I think, want to give ourselves room to take a step back. And I mean, we just been playing like it feels like every weekend for the past over a year. So I know that's probably not what people would love to hear or whatever, but whenever we do come back after the tour and whatever, like we definitely want to have something with a new perspective.
Yeah, I think that's really important too. You got to take a step back and see what your band is and figure out what you're going to do next.
Totally.
And we're very excited to see whatever it's going to be.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for doing the interview, guys. This was great.
Totally.
Thank you for
so much,
asking
man.
asking us.
Bye, man.